information with all of my people that follow me on TikTok. But I also realized that I have to share the wealth here with you guys here on YouTube. So I'm here. And I hope the things that I have to share with you is a wonderful way to help you move forward in your life. Since it is mental health awareness, since it is mental health awareness month, my goal is to help you with mental health awareness. I think that's going to be the spinoff that we're going to do today. And again, like I said, this is something that I can do live, and it is something that I hope that you guys can stay and hang out and ask all the questions. When it comes down to generational trauma, this is my practice. And if you are interested and curious in learning more about what I do, go ahead and click the link in my bio and sign up for our newsletter because we have a wonderful community that includes, again, like Mrs. Rosa from Oasis Regressions, where we have a wonderful group of people that will help connect with you in order to make your life a lot easier and better. With that being said, welcome. The focus for today is understanding what my life is about, not mine, but yours, and how generational traumas affect you in your day to day space. When it comes down to generational trauma, and usually it takes me a little moment to kind of get everything together in my head so I can get out my nerves. But when it comes down to generational trauma, it is very important for us to take our moments and look at ourselves to see what it is that is troubling us, the things that we know can harm us or is harming us and preventing us from living the best life that we have. Thank you guys so much for the likes. Greatly appreciate it. It's awesome to live the life that we have. And what I normally do is I talk about myself because, all I know is me. But please feel free to chime in at any moment to share your thoughts and your hi, Blackout. Share your thoughts and your ideas and your moments. Thank you guys for the likes. And this is a full conversation. Like it's a teaching moment, but it literally is a full conversation. I don't like to be on here where I'm just talking to the air because I know there's people out here that's watching, which they are. So welcome in everyone. So for me, this whole idea, and I'm learning since we're getting close to Father's Day as well, I am learning how fathers play a big part in our role in human. I subbed, I subbed you. Deserve it. Thank you. I don't know what that means, but thank you. You deserve it, so I'm cool with that. Thank you. The things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis when it comes down to our connections to our fathers and how it plays with mental health, since we are in that merge of the 2 months. Um, our fathers play a huge role in the dynamic of who we are as individuals. They play, or our father figures, they help to reaffirm us with their words of affirmations. Uh, and this is their responsibility in a sense, but not all of us have the great, amazing fathers. There are some that do, and there are some of us that do not. But a father is so important because a father provides you with um, affirmation, affirming, reassuring you who you are, and allowing you to be in a space where you are calm and you are not anxious. And what I have learned recently, and I'm pulling up my notes because that's always a good place to start. What I've learned recently that a father, when he is not affirming and when his communication skills are lacking, what ends up happening is um, it's several things. So let me start, like I said, from the beginning. Um, for me, I am a military brat. And as a military brat, it was understood for my dad to always be away. That was his job. He would be around me for 6 months out of the year, and then he would go overseas for another 6 months. When he came back, we were always moving. I moved so much in my life. I moved, and I have been to 17 different elementary schools. I've also been to 3 different high schools throughout my entire life. So change is always always the thing that I have been used to. Moving is always something that I have been used to. Uh, and moving around is something that I've always been used to. And what I've learned recently that the generational traumas that are established between that time as a child and seeing my father in the military state in the military space that creates it creates it creates the idea of abandonment, and it also creates the idea of like a physical uh, absence. And because that absence is there, and because that absence is present in some of our lives, even if it's for work, be it for incarceration, be it for war, be it for anything, or your father just chose not to be a part of your life, what that ends up doing is it creates the fear of rejection, right? It also creates attachment issues. So if you notice that you had some form of attachment issues, like avoidant attachment, what are some of the other ones? Avoidant attachment. All of these attachments, I'm not really keen on all of the attachment issues that come with people, but emotionally unattached, and things like that. When that happens, that is a form of your father or a father figure not being present in your life. Right? Hold on. Hold on. Yep, that was my dad. Sorry. That's my father. Father. In any case, edit, cut, break away. All right, restart in a sense. Anyway, as I was saying before, when it comes down to the avoidant attachments and all of the forms of attachment issues that many of us as human beings may have, it's a form of your father not being there. So when it comes down to your mother is the first person that ever loves you, period. She is the one that you are in her womb. You are there. You feel everything that she feels, right? And she's your very first connection with love. When it comes down to your father was present during the development of who you are. Everybody want to call me now. If your father was present during the development of who you are, then what ends up happening is your father creates the bond, the actual glue, which holds things together, or the male figure in your life, or the masculine figure in your life. So when these two people come together, when it comes down to who you are as a person, this is what's supposed to create that normal state of being, that normal individual that is fully whole within themselves. That's what's supposed to happen. But some of us aren't available or even have um, the idea to have that in our lives. And that has absolutely nothing to do with who you are as a person. It's just the circumstances and the situation in which you were born into, or whatever was gifted to you as far as your parents go. Uh, but when your father is absent, being whatever the dynamic was between your father and your mother, and the father a balanced individual. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yes. Whatever happened between your mom and your dad, whatever happened between those two people can help or to create the idea of who you are supposed to be. When your father and or your mother aren't fully within themselves and they haven't allowed themselves to heal from these traumas or generational traumas, be it that their father wasn't around, be it that their mother may not have been around, and there's some absentees that happen in that the the symbolism of who they are or the example wasn't given to them. And because this example wasn't fully given to them, it's almost hard for them to naturally know what they're supposed to do. As parents, we don't have a blueprint of what to do as far as being a child or as far as being parents, right? And what ends up happening when it comes down to generational trauma, we end up subconsciously reenacting the things that our parents once did to us. And so, again, like I stated, for me, I'm here to help people uh, break those things and to take a moment to look within themselves so they can be the change that they want to see in this world. Um, when it comes down to emotional unavailability, sometimes what ends up happening with us is we look and we seek for people to be emotionally available for us. And when it comes down to your makeup of your father and how your father is in your life, what ends up happening is that when your dad are physically absent or emotionally disconnected to you from emotions, what ends up happening is it leads you to the place where you feel like you are not you're not easily trusting of others, or you are expressing, or you have a fear of expressing your emotions, or when you express your emotions you don't feel validated, so you have moments of self-doubt. These are the things that plays a big huge part in us as individuals when it comes down to having a father figure in your life, especially when it comes down to your father. And for those who have been around, like Rosa, thank you, Rosa. For those who have been around, the reality is that we are connected by blood. And because we are so connected by blood, um, that that blood connection that we have from our fathers innately helps to penetrate the dynamics within our DNA, right? Our fathers and our mothers are supposed to be there to help cultivate us because our blood is connected even stronger, and that bond is even stronger than if we had another style of family members. Now, this isn't fully absolute because we have family dynamics of all backgrounds, right? We have foster families, we have adoptive families, we have all kinds of families. But the impact and the implications that has happened when it comes down to your actual blood father and your actual blood mother, um, that holds a stronger force in order to help create you as a balanced individual in some way, shape, or form, right? Um, and in the same breath, it also gives you the bipolar or the polar opposite of that kind of dynamic. If your father is not physically uh, and emotionally connected to you, um, it creates these difficult trusting and the difficulties in expressing your emotions. And then another point when fathers are, and this all is going to tie into mental health, I promise. When it comes down to overly controlling fathers and harsh discipline. Now, for me, my dad was in the military, so my dad was very military. He was very structured in the way that he disciplined me and my brother. And a lot of times, what happens is this created fear. And this is also when you have some parents that are not in the Gen X, but the baby boomers, right? We have the baby boomer parents. And the baby boomer parents, in some regards, right? Because I'm with my father right now, and the way that I'm raising my son contradicts what my what my father believes, because he's part of the baby boomer era in that space. And he's used to, creating these fear and force instead of communicating and sharing love. Um, he was brought up in if you don't if you spoil the ride, you spoil the child. If you spare the ride, you spoil the child. That's my dad. That's what he was brought up in. And for him to see me actually nurturing and communicating with my son and talking to him and sharing with him why things happen and why things should be, it's a conundrum for him, right? But he's learning, which is great. He's learning to talk to my son and to share with him as far as communicating what it is that he wants him to do, and he understands that. When that happens and you have fathers that create these opportunities to communicate with their children, what ends up happening is it alleviates or lessens the idea of perfectionism. It also lowers the ideas of anxiety, and it also helps to uh, empower your child so they don't have the fear of failure. Uh, then the lack of affirmation, that's the next phase. Lack of affirmation and praise. Not hearing, I'm proud of you and I love you from your father or your father figure. What ends up happening is it creates low self worth. So if you are struggling with your self worth or your self identity of how you perceive yourself, and you're struggling to know that, it might be because your father wasn't there, or the father figure in your life, or masculine figure in your life, wasn't there to provide you with that reaffirming that they're proud of you or that they love you. Simple words and matched with actions make a big difference, like positive actions. Um, and it also, by not hearing, I'm proud of you and I love you, also creates people pleasing, the idea of people pleasing. And how do I know this? That was one of the things that I dealt with as well. And validating behavior, seeking for validation for your behavior. All of these things, for the most part, and this is not always absolute, but a lot of these things equate from you not hearing that I love you and I'm proud of you from your father figure in your life. Lack of affirmations. Um, what ends up happening uh, in fathers who teach their children not to express their emotions, and to never cry and to avoid being vulnerable. The implications of that leads to generational silence and suppressed grief and anger that is masked as strength, and not allowing a child to be able to express their emotions, to never cry or validate them, and allow them to be vulnerable, um, creates this macho man. Like, you're not supposed to cry, you're not supposed to do this. Or women who are silent and are very insecure and they can't express their feelings. The super independent woman, right? The super independent uh, woman who, or the superwoman that a lot of people tend to label women as in some regards. Um, Broken promises. Whenever you see that your father has provided you or given you broken promises or trust violations, the patterns of inconsistencies from your father creates a betrayal and the idea of betrayal, which provides you with the idea in your mind, if you were growing up with this, which causes you to have deep mistrust in male figures or authority. So when you have this idea already surfaced, and you see that in the world today, and we see it every day in our world, we have these deep mistrust issues of male figures and authority. And then we can see that again in our society if you're here in the United States of America. And then the absence of a father through lines of systemic oppression, which we talk about a lot in our class and in our classes and on our TikTok page, is slavery, segregation. These are absent father lines of systemic oppression, um, like slavery, segregation, mass incarceration, or forced suppression, a separation of a fracture, is primarily in the Black community, leads to inherited trauma and identity confusion. So, because a father isn't there, you have people who are not sure about their life and how they are placed in life and what they're supposed to do within their life as the people that they are. And that is something that is generational. These are the generational traumas that can be pinned because of the way our system is and the way that our systems, especially in the United States, have created these dynamics, which causes a large amount of issues that we are facing right now. And how does all of this play into generational trauma? Now, as I said before, all of these things have a factor and they come from your father. So whenever you see someone who is, or whenever you look at someone who is dealing with any of the things that I just previously listed, what ends up happening is the output, the anxiety. Anxiety causes you more stress. Anxiety is a natural feeling that all of us have, but because anxiety is overstimulated, which we are facing right now, because we have the overstimulation of anxiety, and we have all of these things that are factoring into constantly putting us in a space where we are in a state of panic, unknowing, and unaware. If we don't have the father figure that has been there with us, uh, or you haven't taken out the time to look at yourself from the space or the space of, okay, this is what my father did because he didn't know any better, right? Or my father did this because this is what he was used to. Or my father happened to be in this space because this is what was presented to him. I can literally look at my life and make a decision that I don't have to live like that. That's not the place that I need to be. When it comes down to steps of healing your generational trauma from your daddy wounds, here are some key elements that I would like you to consider. Um, I want you to look at your life and I want you to look at it from the point of acknowledging your wound. What caused the problem? What happened that created the issues that you are dealing with? And do it without having shame or blame. Like look at it from a specific point of view, from the outside looking in. Make sure you have your journal. And I want you to look at it and I want you to and consider what I need from my father that I didn't receive. That would be like something that you would journal down. And then I want you to take a moment to change your narrative. I want you to look at where your father had been. What did your father deal with, if you know, right? So, a lot of times, as I said earlier, these things are created from patterns that they weren't aware of. These things were what it was. This is how their lives were supposed to be, right? And I want you to consider looking at how your father may have been wounded as well. What did your father deal with? I can tell you, like, for my dad my grandfather, my actual grandfather was a drunk. He drank all the time. That's all he did, in some regards. And that's towards the end of his life. But the beginning part of his life, my grandfather was a man who um, was a part of World War II. And also, my grandfather was a man who was an entrepreneur who had like 14 grocery stores within our city. And he was a black man, right? And half Native American. And so my grandfather had several homes and several houses that he owned within the city and several farmlands. And I have to think that during this time, my grandfather was born around the 1900s, like 1920, 1900s, really. And when I look at history, my grandfather was a man who was born after the the downfall um, of Black Wall Street. This was my grandfather, and how he had to take those ideas of what was happening during the time of Black Wall Street because he was self motivated. He was a proud man who had things, and he had pride in being a black man who owned all these things. And throughout our lineage, I can see from throughout time, if we look at history, um, and we can see what happened in history through this time, was the demise of many black cities, the burning down of many black cities, and how black people as a whole were put in positions where things were completely dismantled. And the very hard work that they put in no longer had meaning. It was destroyed. And if I look at it from my grandfather's point of view, it would make sense why my grandfather would find himself as a drunk in his later years. It would make sense. And understanding that my grandfather dealt with that in his lifetime, and knowing that my father had to grow through that, understanding that he saw my grandfather maybe at his highest yet lowest point of his life, and he had to rebuild. He had to look at his life and figure it out. It would make sense why my father would want to move and to join the military, because in his line of work, he had to be strong on the outside, and yet he had to deal with all of the things that he dealt with in the military as a Black man who was a part of the engineering crew as a gunner's mate, working with nuclears and all of this stuff. These are the things that my dad dealt with while trying to be a stand up father for his children, the best that he knew how, right? So, what I would like you guys to do is to um, consider the line that your fathers had gone through, if you know them. And if you don't, consider the man or the masculine figure in your life and what they had to go through in order for them to live who and to be who they are, right? Now, and I would love for you to consider having compassion for them. Now, compassion does not mean that you excuse the behavior if your father figure or your father did you wrong in some way, shape, or form. It does not excuse the behavior in any way, shape, or form. Not at all. That's not what we're here for. But the problem is, the idea is to be in a space where you are completely set free, right? For you to let go of the burdens of what your father or your fathers have done to you, and to release you from the burdens that your father and or your fathers carried. That's not your weight to carry in any way, shape, or form. And then the next thing that I would like you to consider is to release your emotional stagnation. Uh, One of our experts found within Healing in Black, Dr. Abina Berry, always states that crying is your very first language. As a child, as a human being, when you come into this world, your very first thought is to cry. That's it. That's what you're supposed to do, is cry. And for many of us, especially as for me, as a woman and a Black woman in America, the idea of a Black woman crying, or woman or person crying, period, is not the most beneficial. And it doesn't give you any, it doesn't give you any strength at all. Um, but it's truly the opposite. Your tears, every single tear that you cry, every single moment that you cry, and everything that you do from your tears, it actually, each tear represents something totally different. No tear is ever the same. It's just like your cells. So when you release yourself and you allow yourself to cry and you allow yourself to be present, what you're doing is releasing yourself from those anxieties, from the sadness, from the depression that you might have been holding on to all these years. And after you've done that, what I want you to do is to consider using sound therapy, and I'll link it in our uh, thing below. But I would love for you guys to connect with Belindia, India by Belindia, or Mama Ruth, and I'll put her information below to get yourself some sound healing, and consider doing your belief work with me. If you would love to book or consider booking a session, a one-on-one session with me, what I do is I help you uh, release yourself from the inherited beliefs that are found within your DNA and in your subconscious. And you can check that out below, the link in our bio, and also below in the description of this live. And then find ways to honor your father. I know that may be challenging, But your father helps to create the freeing of your mental space. And that is the whole goal. The entire goal is to release you so you can be free of mind, right? And to help you release some of the things that have been locking you in. Like if you check out um, our playlist, we have a playlist for mental health issues. If you check out our playlist and then check out our webinar, um, once you get the free gift, you can do muscle testing to see if those beliefs are connected to you. And you can probably find out if they are associated to your father's as well. So that's the end of my little session today. It's only 30 minutes long. But make sure you check out our page. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comment and I will do my best to answer them in regards to generational traumas and healing yourself from the generational traumas. Have a wonderful night. Yeah, I know you about to do your thing. And I love it. Thank you guys so much for joining in. This was a very short class. Usually my classes are about an hour long. But if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. I know that it takes a little bit on YouTube for you to put your questions in. And if you have any other things that you would like me to talk about, please feel free to put it in the comments. And I'm here to help the best way that I can with the knowledge that I have because my goal is to help you change one person at a time. So, yeah. And again, like I said, if you are interested in booking your one on one session with me, please feel free to go to the link in our bio or click below because it's different here on YouTube. Feel free to click below and check out our page and book a session with me, and let's have a one on one and let's start healing generational trauma for you. Yeah. Join our newsletter. It's absolutely free. Join our webinar. It's absolutely free. And join our community. Those are kind of free. So, yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it being here on YouTube. I know next week I'm going to schedule these out so it can be more of a conversation so you guys know when I'm coming on live. But we're going to schedule this out, and next week we're going to dive in even more so on more of your generational trauma healing from your mental illness because we are still celebrating um, mental mental health awareness month in addition to the coming into Father's Day. Yeah. And the impact that fathers have on you. All right. That being said, I hope you guys had a wonderful day. Thank you guys for joining my live, and I will catch you guys on the flip side next Tuesday, 1 hour earlier. Holla. That was cool.